Well, let's get started. Super excited to be here today for another webinar. Thanks for joining us. As you already know, my name's Andrew Gallion-Man. I'm customer success manager at Assembly AI, and just I apologize, but yeah, just as you may already know, that we're a platform that's really focused on allowing you to have the ability to ship AI-powered features extremely quick and super fast. So today we're going to be talking with Prayag, who is the co-founder and CEO of Marvin. We're really just talking about how he has how he's thought about this from his point of view. But real quick before we get started, want to jump into some housekeeping. You can ask question and answers at any time in the box. You can also adjust the volume for your audio settings in the bottom left of your control panel. And finally, this webinar is being recorded, which we'll share that tomorrow. But as already mentioned, Prayag, welcome. I would love to hand this off to you and really just give a quick intro of yourself.
Thank you, Andrew. This has been this is wonderful. The whole prep has been wonderful. I'm really excited. This is one of my topics that I get really excited about. User research and use of AI. That's kind of my home turf. So really excited to be here. My name is Prayag. I am the co-founder and CEO of Marvin. HeyMarvin.com is the website, in case you're wondering. We are a user research platform, a user research repository. It's a place to conduct your research. It's a place to store your research. It's a place to analyze your research. We have a full-fledged qualitative data analysis tool. So it's a place to also analyze your research, share your research. So we are a full functional user research platform, specifically on the research repository side. Work with very large companies to startups. Our message to everyone is very simple. Go talk to your users. Your users will tell you a lot about how you can build better products and serve your users better. Really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I completely agree with that. Obviously, being in customer success, when I hear how our product's being used and what concerns or praises that our customers have, so I think it's a great thing to highlight. I would really love to kick it off just with why Marvin. Like maybe in your own words, what would you say differentiates Marvin in your particular space?
Yeah, absolutely. Marvin, the goal for Marvin is to help you centralize all of your research, but not to kind of use the tools that we recommend. We like to meet our users where they are. So, if you're using Zoom or Teams for conducting your research, that's great. We'll integrate directly into there. We'll integrate to Zoom. We'll let you take notes on the platform. We'll do all of that. Oh, you're using Qualtrics for your service? Great, we'll integrate with Qualtrics. Oh, if you want to share videos on your own platform on Confluence, sure, we'll do that. So we are a place to kind of really brings together all of kind of various things that you're using and doing. Our focus is a lot on workflow. What we want to do is make sure that team is doing good research and team is not spending as much time doing kind of data finagling and data tagging. That's where we really come in. We really want our customers, our users, to spend a lot less time on like wrestling with the data and tagging of the data, and a lot more time on actually engaging with the data and doing the analysis and do it in a way that's still very rigorous. So save time and do it rigorously and use the tools that you're already using. That's kind of what differentiates us, and that's why a lot of customers are switching to us, using us, and I'm very proud of what we have done in those fields.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And I assume a lot of that is probably, as we're discussing today, powered by AI. So would love to kind of just get a high level understanding of, how are you utilizing AI today in your product? How are you thinking about that?
Great question. So for me, I think of AI as, technological tool, right? Paradigm shifting tool, a really important tool, but just another tool in the toolkit of the product builders. So for us, AI is, we think of AI as how can we start with our user problems, our customer problems. Here are the problems that our customers are facing. And now, what is the best method to solve that problem? What's the best technology to solve that problem? A lot of times it is AI, which is great. Other times it's not, right? Like other times it's more changes in the workflow. Other times it's more integrating with a different creating a different data pipeline, integrating into a different different tool set. Maybe even taking data out of Marvin could be a solution. So it always starts with customer problems. Now, more and more what we are seeing is as AI capabilities are expanding, we can do a lot more and solve a lot more problems using AI that we didn't think we would be able to solve at all, right? Mm-hmm. But in the end, to me and to our product team, and that's the message I have for everyone, AI is groundbreaking technology, but it's a technology, and technology is there to serve the user. Use it as another big tool in your tool set. And that's kind of how we think of AI.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it, and it's always important, I would say, to as the product owner, of putting AI into the market, if you will, how thinking about that market impact, how is it being used, and is it being used in a way that's additive to someone's product life, things of this nature. So it sounds like you've thought a lot about how it should be implemented in the market, and maybe if you have some thoughts there, we'd love to understand how, like when you're looking to integrate AI into your technologies, like what are some of the thoughts you have there? Is it, how do you decide to commit to a certain feature? Mm-hmm. What's the thought process around that kind of that decision making?
Great question. So as I said, it all starts with user needs. It all starts with what is the challenge that the customers have. And look, that challenge might not even be, the user might not even know about a certain challenge. You have to tease them. You have to talk to them. You have to go and engage with them, have a conversation with them, run surveys, like whatever you're using to get, talk to your customer success team, right? Really try to nail down what is the challenge that the customers have. And then from that, you talk about, what is it? How can we best solve those challenges? Ideally, once you have figured out a solution, you actually go and validate that with your customers and say, hey, here is what I'm thinking. Would this workflow, here is a rough chat, here's a chart, here's a rough diagram. Would this workflow help, right? Let them talk you through how this will work in their existing, and how this will fit into their existing workflow. Now, once you have established, hey, here is the solution, that's when you go and look for, the best AI technology out there to solve a certain, to solve that problem, right? Assembly AI is doing amazing work, and a lot of times, we rely on assembly to be the tool of choice, especially when it comes to audio, video, and intelligence there, and transcription, and so on. At the same time, we do have other vendors that we sometimes look at and be like, what is it that that this particular solution requires, and what is the best vendor out there to go and pick to solve that problem. And that's kind of how we end up kind of building out these solutions. If I give you an example, a lot of times our customers were coming to us and say, hey, we are storing all this video data on your platform, all this. We've talked to all these customers, and these are very large companies, some of the largest financial institutions in the world, right? And they're like, we have all this customer data, and now we're getting concerned because our legal team is saying now you have to delete that data, or we're concerned about all this privacy that the participant had, privacy issue that the participant might have with us storing this data for you. So what we did was we went around and we looked at what customers were doing, and essentially they were using video editing software to either strip out the video or hide the video or bunch of they were kind of doing all these hacks, and we're like, oh, what if we could strip out PII from this video solutions, right? Or from these videos, like if we could automatically remove, maybe somehow remove the video or remove like people's faces. We went and validated that idea. People loved it, right? And then we went around and guess what? Like Assembly AI had a solution that could do exactly what we wanted them to do. And we basically just like used that. And it was a really good feature set that our enterprise customers really appreciate. But it always starts from, hey, we can't do XYZ. What can we do? And that's kind of how you and that's kind of the journey that I recommend.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. I'm kind of curious, what would you say is the hardest part of that process? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot going on there. So I'd just love to understand maybe what are some of those challenges you see when you're trying to integrate, AI technologies into your product, and how are you overcoming this?
I think it's the first part. It's basically trying to understand what is the problem that our customers are solving, what is the most urgent problem that they have, and trying to really understand, really grok that problem. And that's why I think user research is so important in the world today. It's AI is advancing very rapidly, and there are all these new solutions that are coming up every day. You guys are doing all this amazing stuff, right? But to really so you will have a variety of things that you could build. But what is it that really makes an impact on our users' lives? Right, that's the most that becomes more and more important. As AI can do more and more of the building part. Like AI can write code, AI can do design, right? Like, but not entirely, but that's kind of what the promise is. As the other parts become kind of more and more automated, really understanding what needs to be built, the what becomes or the why becomes so much more important than the how. So I think that's, to me, that's probably the most important piece of the whole equation. But look, I'm biased, right? Like I'm a user researcher by training. I talk to researchers and designers all day. So I'm obviously, slightly biased. I would definitely acknowledge that. But I still think that that's the biggest piece of building any product, is really understanding what are the challenges and why are we building this, and what are the problems that we need to solve for our customers.
Yeah, of course. So how important then, I know you've put a lot of thought into this, but how important is getting the right qualitative data, for AI? How important is it to think about these kind of market impacts? Just kind of a, maybe top of mind thoughts around the impact of AI and how you should be thinking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think qualitative data is the way in which a lot of these decisions need to be made. And I'll probably ruffle a few feathers by saying that I just don't think there is enough of quantitative data for most people, most companies, most products out there to make entire decisions on what are the problems that we are facing, right? Like, what is a challenge that our customers are facing? Like that does require someone having that conversation with the users. And I'm not saying like, every company needs a 300-person research team. Some companies do, or 1,000-person research team. What I'm saying is, whether that's designers, whether that's even customer success managers, that conversation needs to be happening kind of on an ongoing basis, and that conversation is all qualitative, right? Like that's so unless you are actually there is no survey, no A/B test that you can run that can really get you to empathize and get not just your entire organization empathize with the customer, right? And so I feel like that is the most important piece to solve that problem. And how does that impact the AI? As I said, right, like as we are doing more and more with AI, that becomes kind of the how and the why becomes, or the what and the why becomes the most important pieces. The how becomes kind of, less and less important. So especially if you're using AI technologies or building AI technologies, it becomes kind of that the qualitative data is the key ingredient. Now I'm gonna interpret your question in a slightly different way, if I may. One of the things
for sure.
that AI is, there's this, especially large language models, the LLMs are on a tear, right? Like this new model coming out every day, every few months. It's amazing. It's just great technological progress, right? I think one of the pieces that's missing, and I did a talk with Rida Kadri, who works at Google now. She did a study of technology impact in Southeast Asia before she went. Even she was in. She studied like the Uber and all these like platforms and their impact on developing countries. And one of the key takeaways from that conversation was unless we really go and grok and really understand and really use the right methods and research methodologies to understand that impact, we would not be able to we will have the best intentions in releasing a technology. We would still be doing those community and humanity a disservice if we don't spend substantial amount of time trying to understand what impact these AI technologies will have on these communities. So I think this whole agile and let's move quickly, move fast and break things, all of that is well and good. But when it comes to something as transformational as AI, as large language models, I think it's our responsibility as technology builders to really go and understand and try and predict and try and study the impact that this technology can have, and really take responsibility for the impact that these technologies will happen, the impact that it'll have, not just in the next 2 months, but 2 years down the line, 7 years, 5 years down the line. We need to at least try our level best to be able to study that and predict that and use our all of the knowledge that the humanity and qualitative and social sciences have gathered over the last 50 years to really try and understand, are we making something, or are we making things in the right way? Are we doing the right ethical things by building certain technologies or building certain technologies in a certain way? And that is all qualitative data as well. So that's kind of my message to Assembly AI and everybody who's building kind of groundbreaking AI technologies, really try and understand what impacts these technologies are having, not only your immediate community, but the community beyond that you might not even be studying today.
How much of that do you think is potentially like a education, in the sense of maybe trying to teach users how to best use this technology versus I guess I'll just leave it there. Do you have any thoughts on maybe how we can better empower people in their day-to-day life to better use this technology in the way it's meant to be used?
We don't get to tell our users how they use our technology. Okay. We as builders do not then go around and get to dictate that, oh, you didn't use our technology right. And I'll tell you why. Can you imagine if I was, the chief data officer or chief privacy officer at Facebook, Meta, right? And then people are complaining, hey, Meta is leaking out our private data, or there are all these apps that are getting all this, sucking out of my data into there via Facebook. Now, I, as a data, as Facebook, don't get to tell you, oh, why did you add these apps, right? I don't get to tell you how to use the technology. Once the technology is out there, it's the users, it's they who decide how to use those technologies. So sure, we can talk about, the users is uneducated. No, the user is not uneducated. You did not build the right technology, or you did not build the technology the right way. right?
Mhm.
So, I'm I'm much, I'm a gray beard, right? I remember the time when there used to be, the RTFM, read the effing manual was like the
Mhm.
mantra, especially in the open source community. But even they moved away from it, right? Like you don't get to decide, you don't get to tell your users how to use technology. You get to
Mhm.
design the technology in the best way you can, and you better we better do your homework,
Yeah.
because the users will use the technology in the best way it serves them. Technology is to serve humans. It's
Mhm.
not the other way around.
Yeah. I also think it'll be interesting to see, how companies will identify areas in the market that can be responsibly addressed, and so an easy example that I can draw from, obviously from the assembly AI side, is we think about like, okay, there's a lot of cool stuff that's going on with, like, say, large language models and things of that nature. How do we engage in it in a way that like helps customers to build faster and have accurate results, and have a level of like ease of use, or have a level of accuracy to it? Because
Mhm.
sometimes with these, like you said, sometimes with these models, you said you can't say like, hey, this is how you use it, but you see now it's like on every like YouTube short or Instagram reel or whatever like quick video you have. It's like asking a random question to some of these models, and then you get this like unfeathered response, when a lot of these models, maybe they need more context, and so it's how do you then handle that? And to your point, it's like sometimes it's how do you really go to like the mass population and say, well, hey, here, you're using this wrong, here's how you do it. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how companies start thinking about, okay, there's this technology out in the world, maybe it's not being utilized in a way that was is expected or unexpected, and maybe there's a way to like responsibly create easier access, or so that customers and downstream users are, they're not getting, they're not like Googling medical advice on, Chat GPT or something. So it'll be interesting to see how companies kind of go into that. And so that's where I put it back to you actually, and say, how, when looking at AI today in your product, like how is that improving? How is it improving your product? Are there certain features that you have on your roadmap that you're excited about, that you're really
Mhm.
thinking about? We'd love just kind of a general idea of where that sits today for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as I said, we use a lot of AI features. It's kind of one of the biggest thing we spend our time and effort on, and we have seen some amazing results so far. One of my favorite features is we have a note-taking app. So we will integrate with your Zoom and Teams or Meet or whatever platform that you're using, and then your team can come in and take notes and then tag the data in real time, the questions and everything. Now, there is a setup there, and when we first started, we're like, oh yeah, you can just like take notes on Marvin. Now what we are saying is actually like, don't actually take notes on Marvin. Just like, let Marvin can actually take notes for you, and it'll capture notes that are in most cases better than a human can. Right now, note taking is such a it's kind of a mechanical exercise. So automating that, and it's stressful. So I'm getting on a customer call and I have like I have an hour of their time. I want to capture everything, right? There's so much stress, right? So we can help you automate that, right? Like, and it's the feature is live today. It works really nicely. Our customers love it. So that directly came from customers saying, oh my God, I really don't know how much notes I can take. I really like to focus on our customers rather than their notes. So we found like, okay, well, what if we automated the note-taking process for you, right? So that's a feature that I'm really excited about. We also have started to summarize a lot of research for you now. Again, that's not a replacement of a researcher or a designer to be doing that, but we really do help you. You can bring in your data, and the AI can say, okay, well, looking at this data, here is my take, here is my summarization. I looked at 500 survey responses. Here are the patterns that you're seeing. Now that's something that is, that honestly, when I started the company, our company is less than 3 years old. So When I started the company, I didn't even know that that was going to be possible in the next 10 years. Now we are already doing it. So I think our focus a lot on conceptually is using AI as a sidekick for our customers, and automating some of the stuff that they are already kind of that they are already doing, and they don't like doing. That's not part of their core the core value that they bring. So a lot of it is data wrangling, a lot of it is like recording, and it used to be, back in my day, it used to be transcription, right? So now we are trying to kind of automate a large part of that, while at the same time, what we are trying to do is preserve what a researcher and designer brings to the table, which is user empathy, which is you cannot AI the user empathy piece, and I know people are trying. But that's the core value that the customer-centric culture. That's not something that you can like have AI build for you. That's the stuff that we want our users to do. But the more mechanical part, the note taking, some parts of this, not the whole synthesis, but some part of the synthesis, and even some part of the analysis could be kind of offloaded. At least have AI do some part of it, so that you are a lot more free to spend your time doing, what you do best.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to think of it in the sense of how do we make effective people more effective? How do we get them into more high leverage, situations? And so it's not about replacing necessarily individuals, but empowering them to move faster and more productive. So it makes a lot of sense.
No, I love that code. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate it. So on that note, we've kind of talked a lot about like the new things on the market. Do you feel like we're in a new era I should say, of AI at this moment?
Here's what I'll say. The last time there was this much buzz about AI was about 8 years ago. And I thought that's then the buzz was premature. There was a lot of, I think, Gary Chan, who's now the president of Y Combinator, said, "Oh, there's a lot of kind of strategically based if statement masquerading as AI," which it was. And I thought that was, it was the beginning, but it was really premature. This time, the buzz feels real, especially around the large language model. The buzz feels real. Now, look, like let's just, the large language model and AI are not the same. Like large language models are just one subset of AI. Is the whole field of AI going to transform? I don't know. But is the hype around LLMs real? I think so. I think there's definitely a lot to look forward to. And look, I'm a founder. I've been founding companies since for 14 years now. I'm optimist by nature, even though my team would definitely not agree with it. But I am a believer in the technology, and I think especially LLMs, there is a lot to look forward to now. Is it going to change the world completely? And the OpenAI or Sam Altman is saying, I don't know. It remains to be seen. But it's definitely going to have a large impact on all of our works.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see how it develops and where we head to the future. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And also, I think the $1 million question too is like, okay, based off maybe your thoughts of what's coming down in the future, it's how do we capitalize on new AI breakthroughs? And like you said earlier, do so responsibly. So that's something I would propose to you and see what you think.
So that's a good question. Looking into the making technological prediction is a fool's errand. Usually, you're almost always either overestimate the impact of technology. Here's how I think usually it goes. You end up overestimating the impact of technology in the short term, and you underestimate the impact of technology in the long term. So if I was to say, what is the impact of AI or LLMs going to be in the next few years? I think it's going to just give us another toolkit to do certain tasks a different way or another way, and see which one is better, right? And I think the comparison I make is, for example, right, as I said, like Marvin has we have this product that can look at all of your data and say, hey, here is kind of my summarization, Marvin summarization of everything. But the way our customers are using it today is like, okay, well, that's one take. That's AI's take on it, and I can regenerate, and I can get like a few takes of AI on it. But then I, as a researcher, I as a designer, would probably have a lot more context, a lot more engagement with the data, and I will create the final take on. But some of that would likely come from the AI, right? Like maybe I'm positioning a finding in such a way that the AI positioned a finding in such a way that I didn't think of. So I'm going to borrow that or use that as in part of my report. So I think what we are going to do is look, LLMs are going to continue to progress, and they're going to get better and better, which is what's going to happen. It's kind of an arms race. But in the short term, I don't think like it's going to replace researchers, it's going to replace designers. It's going to help them it's going to give them one more toolkit in their one more tool in their toolkit. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen in the relatively short term. I'm talking like 10 years, right? What's going to happen in the long term? I think we'll start to kind of, if I was to go back, when I graduated college, it was like 2003, and I looked at like what's going to happen in what would my work look like in 20 years? I don't think I would have predicted the cell phone. I don't think I would have predicted, like, even though I was working in the cell phone technology, right? Like I would not have said, oh my God, they'll become so much part of the entire ecosystem. I would not have predicted AI. I think things are going to happen in a way that's going to be we're going to do work in 20 years that's going to look very different from the work. And what we're doing today would kind of, part of it would look quaint and old school. Like typewriters now. I think that's the best prediction I have. What would be more specific? I don't think I know. I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was maybe quickly, because we have some question and answers. The last one, then we'll move on to that. But like to your point, no one really knows. But if you could just say, hey, in the future, I'd love to add this feature to my product.
Yeah.
Even if the technology's like not real.
Yeah.
I would love to just kind of know, like, what's that dream feature?
The dream feature would be if I was able to send like, a robot to my customers and like have that robot like follow around my customers like on a 24-hour period, and then they're like, oh, and then they did this, and then they did this, and then they did this, and then maybe we would be able, and that robot can come and say, I recorded this person for an 8-hour workday or 3 days, 24 hours, all these 24 hours. I think we could automate this, and this if we did A, B, C, right? That would be cool. But I don't know how much my customers would be happy to think about this, even if it was technologically possible. But that'll be my dream, like, a tiny little thing that, just because empathy really gets built, when you spend some time with your customers. I wish I could, maybe outsource some of that. I don't know.
Yeah. Basically allow you to be in more places than one, it sounds like.
That's correct. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to go through those questions. Super helpful. Just a reminder, we're going to get into the Q&A portion here, so feel free to fill out the box and we'll get to those. But to get started, I want to go through some pre-submitted ones. So we've got one, looks like from Saki, that says, how would you integrate AI into your growth wheel And when are you on? Sorry, and when you are on an early stage startup with a never before seen product?
That's a good question. So it depends on where, what you mean by a growth wheel, right? If the growth wheel is literally, hey, I have a product and I really do want to just like grow, like bring more people in front of the product, or put this product in front of more people, there's a lot you could use AI for. You could use it to build, good content. You can use it to do a lot of kind of outbound emailing or demand generation. A lot of demand generation, I think, can be done more effectively with AI. But I think this question, based on the audience, I feel that this question is talking slightly different. It's this idea of like, if you have a never before product, how do we build out the best AI technology, or how do we build out the best technology to kind of to build a product that's going to really change the market. I think the answer is the same, right? Like, forget AI exists for a minute, right? Go and really understand the challenges that your customers are facing, and then come back and say, I have the challenge, and now I'm an expert at AI, and I have 20 AI tools that are up at my disposal. Which is the tool, or which combination of tools I think are best to solve that one problem for my customers, solve those problems for my customers. So if you really want to grow, and this is my stack in startup, so I've raised millions of dollars on various different startups. It always comes back to the customer problems. Like, understand the customer problem, solve those. That's the growth hack that nobody talks about, but that's the growth hack. Solve the problems that your customers are facing, and AI is just opening up so many avenues to be able to do that now.
Perfect. I appreciate that response. Got another one from Macy. It says, as I understand it, AI cannot interpret meaning like we can as humans. So how can you safely use AI to speed up analysis?
That's a great question. First, there are two parts to this. One is like, AI cannot interpret meaning like we can as humans. There's definitely some truth to it, but I think if you look under the hood, AI is actually, my theory and is that AI doesn't learn any much different than humans do. Like, there's just a lot of data that we just get access to from when we are children, and we kind of we look for patterns and then use those patterns to make our decision, right? Like, what is decision making and experience if not like all of the patterns that I've seen, right? So debatable if AI sees patterns differently than humans, but that's more philosophical question. I think the real question is, how do you speed up AI? How do you use AI to speed up analysis? AI, as I said, is a way to, is another way to kind of, or another input into your analysis, right? So you can have AI synthesize some of your research or some of the conversations, and then see what their synthesis is. Now, sometimes it might be like complete nonsense, but most of the time they'll come up with like, oh, here are the patterns that, and hopefully, if you do this, and in AI, you can quickly ask them to like do this again. If you do this a few times, you'll actually start to see like things that you haven't seen in your analysis, right? But also, if AI says something, like, don't take this as at face value. Go and validate that. Do this as if you would do it with a junior researcher, right? So think of AI as your sidekick. Think of AI, at least as it stands currently, as your sidekick, as your helper, as a junior person that's there with you, and validate their finding, but do use them and kind of see what they come up with. A lot of time it'll surprise, it'll surprise you as like some of the insight that the AI can catch that you might have missed. So it's validating, it's using AI, trusting the AI that will give you something new, but also verifying the results.
Yeah, I think it's even more important as AI becomes, I guess, broader or more or general in a sense, like these language models, and you really want to be able to understand what you're looking at, make sure there's a source of truth, and at least in the case of language models, it's instead of just asking like a blind question, so to your point, as a human, if you have the wrong context, then you're going to maybe answer incorrectly. So can we give more context in this particular example? But I think that makes a lot of sense. I do want to, I do have a really interesting question. I think will apply to a lot of people here. Is from Ranjit in the chat. It says, what would your advice be for non-technical people who know zero about AI? Can they master it? How are opportunities on doing some hard work? So yeah, I think it's always interesting to think about this and from that perspective of how are non-technical people, thinking about this problem.
I think one of the biggest things that large language models have done is they made AI accessible, right? Like you don't need, if you can provide the context to the AI, and if you can ask the right question, you don't really need to understand a lot more of what happens under the hood of, as you as kind of LLMs work. So there's nothing technical about, hey, how do I provide the context and how do I ask the right questions? Those two things are, I didn't study it in engineering school. I doubt any of my engineers studied it, right? So the field is so new that and so open that I don't think you need a ton of technological knowledge to be able to use AI in your day-to-day workflow. So if I was somebody just starting to look into AI, I would focus on how to ask the right question and how to provide the right context. You can do that. I think that you can definitely master AI. I mean, mastering AI probably is very different, but you can definitely use it and become really proficient at it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about one from, I'm sorry if I get the names incorrect here, from Raluca, we have, what are the dangers of involving AI in analyzing qualitative findings?
That's another really, really good question. I'm sure if anybody who has spent some time with large language models knows that one of the problems with LLMs is they hallucinate, especially when they get overloaded with context, right? Like right context is good, too much context, they start to pick things out of thin air, right? So that is one. So AI, especially in qualitative findings, right? Like AI might actually give you findings that are straight up incorrect, or they might give you findings that do not follow from the context that you have provided to them. So really validating what AI finds and using your skills as a researcher to validate those findings is extremely important. So I don't think we are anywhere near a place where you can just give the data to AI models and just have them spit out a report for you. That's just not happening anytime soon. So just validate. Trust but verify, I think, is the age-old trust that something new is going to come out. Verify if something new does come out, that it does follow from the data that you have.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I think we have time for probably one more, and then there's a really quick one that I can get to. I think that's more assembly based. But on that note, how would you do joint bias checking between AI and human researcher? From Donald.
How do you do joint bias checking between AI and human researcher? That's a good question. I don't know if we are at a place where AI can bias check a human. Okay. I just haven't. I'm sure it'll be possible at some point. I don't think we have seen any proof that that's going to be possible. It's an experiment that I think we should probably run. Marvin should run internally. But my guess is that you can't bias check human. AI can't bias check human. But the other way around, humans bias checking in AI is extremely important, and it's more important. It's important as a user of AI systems, but also as for those of us who are building AI systems, right? Like one of the key I keep going back to this conversation I had with Rida about impact of technology in an unforeseen impact of technology. A lot of that comes from like bias, right? Like a lot of AI is being trained on Western data, Western media, right? Like how does that impact AI on when it's implemented in the non US, maybe non-European places? Like there's definitely going to be some bias based on kind of where a lot of the training data comes from. And I think it's our responsibility as builders of the AI to bias check that and really ask our question: are we training the AI on the right kind of data? And does that answer, does the context we are providing to this AI is all of the context that works in, most of the world or all of the world? Or are we just looking at, what's going to work for Andrew and what's going to work for Prayag? And that's the context, right? So I think like bias checking AI is extremely important, both in the work of a researcher, but also in the work of AI developers and AI builders.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, really, I thank you for the time. Super insightful. We have reached time. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us and being here today. I will be sure to send a link to watch and share the recording with everyone tomorrow. And thanks again. I'm sure we'll see you soon on the next one. And Parag, thanks again for your time. Super insightful. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you, Andrew. This was wonderful. And thanks for everyone who joined and submitted their questions.
Likewise. Thanks. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.